Hi, I'm Kermit the Alien, and you're watching Roomba. Hello, this is my another video. Yeah, this video is a collab between me and RoboVacCollector, my good friend and one of the bigger robot vacuum channels on YouTube. I mean, look at his humongous collection! The rules of our collab were simple. We request a robot vacuum from one another and then send them to each other as a trade. He requested an older Roomba known as 4-digit, 400 or Discovery series. I hunted down a model that he doesn't have yet, this one being a 5105 Sage. The name Sage coming from the shade of green that this robot is painted with. The seller had two of them, so I bought both, one newer, one older, so I could use the second one for parts. I chose to restore the earlier model as they are more valuable, and I know RoboVacCollector likes the older logo. Also, please note that this was recorded a while ago, hence the lower quality of the recording and the green hair. I ditched the bleached look a long time ago. Join me as we take this robot apart and explore the insides, as I will be showing you the major differences between these older models and new Roombas. When I say a robot is in terrible shape, I truly mean it. This thing has scratches everywhere, it's dirty, almost every piece is yellowed and faded. Plus, every time I moved this bot, a ton of debris fell out of it. You can see I placed it on a piece of bubble wrap, that is because I didn't want all of this 17-year-old dirt on my clean floor. Moving on to the cleaning process, I started with the dustbin expecting it to be completely filled with debris. But to my surprise, this was actually the cleanest part of the poor thing. I guess some care went into this robot. First, I peeled off the sticker that the seller put on and wiped off the glue residue. I unscrewed the screws on the bottom and everything came apart, only the button was held in with a few screws. I cleaned everything with soap and water except the motor housing. I cleaned it with isopropyl alcohol as it contains electronics and parts that can rust. Then I laid it out to dry. Also, check out how different the fan looks. Comparing it to a 500 series fan, it uses a way smaller motor and the fan part is both wider and flatter. It's much easier to clean, however, without all the holes. With the dustbin done, I moved on to disassembling the robot completely. Sadly, one screw was screwed in so hard that it broke the thread and got stuck. The only way to remove it and therefore access the robot's internals was to drill through it. It left a hole and now the bottom plate is missing a screw, but it holds on just fine. This was one of the minor screws. Now the inside. It was really nasty. There was a lot of cat hair and I can confirm that hair for sure came from a cat as a cat owner. My cats actually smelled this and started acting weird, so this was just a confirmation. Also, some time later I actually found a whisker. I removed the faceplate completely and disassembled it further, removing the whole user interface panel as well as the handle. Modern Roombas, older ones used rubber buttons with metal circles on the bottom and a capacitive touch board. Modern ones use a mechanical or just a capacitive touch button without the rubber cover. These older ones also had a separate power on button, power indicator LEDs and a status LED used for showing errors. Because the rubber button piece has yellowed and cannot be painted, I put it through a process called retrobrighting, so basically reversing the yellowing process with ultraviolet light and hydrogen peroxide. Here you can see the results on a white piece of paper and it really made a difference. Coming back to the disassembly process, I might add I don't really like the non-modular internal design. And as a person that works with Roombas basically every day, I'm glad they stepped away from this approach. The whole thing is basically spaghetti made from wires and hot glue. I unscrew and unstick everything from the chassis. Another difference in the more vintage Roombas is that they had a static brush on the opposite side of the spinning side brush. They really, in my opinion, served no purpose, just got dirty and pretty hard to clean as dust liked to go inside the metal top. The motherboard, besides being differently shaped and smaller, is also set differently inside the robot, as it is kinda just laying there in its little slit. Mine was a little stuck, so I had to be extra careful as not to damage the small electronics. I cleaned the whole board with isopropyl alcohol to make sure no connections are blocked because of the sheer amount of dust. The wheels also look much different than modern ones. They're much smaller but wider and use a belt. They also spring back the other way around. Once again, I'm glad they don't use them anymore as the belts could break easily. Thankfully, all of mine were in perfect condition. I was actually surprised seeing as this butt is just 1 year younger than me, dating all the way back to 2004, and rubber usually doesn't age that well. The caster also looks very different, as this is actually the very early non-swivel wheel, meaning it can only go forwards and back and cannot spin freely. There were actually some later discoveries that switched to the two-colored swivel wheels, however. My second Sage I got for parts is a 2006 model and it actually features the newer wheel. Because it isn't split in black and white and therefore cannot use the optic sensor, this is how it uses a little switch that in fact shows the robot that it is moving. The side brush motor as well as the cleaning head is very comparable to modern Roombas. The main difference is the two dirt detect sensors, which also changed to one during the distribution of discoveries. In opposite to 500 series Roombas, the gearbox was sealed perfectly and no hair / other debris got inside it. One of the sensors, however, was faulty and the problem was an unsoldered wire, so I just soldered it back in. Now it's time to repaint. Actually more like update the paint. This time it's not hard at all as RoboVacCollector wanted it in original color, but the old paint just looked terrible and was very scratched, so I mixed a nice metallic sage green and went over the green pieces, avoiding the logo. It was also very damaged and scratched, so I fixed it up with black paint. The silver button and handle were also damaged, so I used silver paint that was weirdly identical to the original paint. The bumper I just de-scratched using sanding paper and covered it in clear spray, then matte spray to achieve the semi-gloss effect. The paint job turned out perfect when it came to the colors, and the robot was ready to reassemble. I still needed to steal some parts from the second model, that being micro switches from the wheels and the speaker, as the switches were old and a little faulty and the speaker did not work at all. As far as I know, this was one of the weak points of discoveries, the speaker's breaking being a very common failure. Thankfully, none of my 400s have the infamous charging problem due to a transistor breaking, so I was very lucky there. Here it is finally assembled. I put it next to the other unrestored Sage for comparison, and heck, it looks totally new, like it's just been made. I will send the package soon, And I also included a little bonus. It's a room plush themed after the model 555. Hope you enjoyed this restoration video. If you did, please leave a like and consider subscribing as more epic Robo content is on the way. Kermit the Alien signing out. Peace.